Great! Now that we've drawn out a basic abortion model, we can see how everything is interconnected. We can recognize that there are many variables in this model that people in society in general would agree are not beneficial to the greater good. That's why people try to make policies and intervene to make the system better. Now, we'll introduce some of these policies, starting where we left off. More abortions lead to more recognition of abortion as a problem. One of the things that people do in response to this recognition is to offer sexual education in schools. There are two general types of sex ed that schools provide. The first is abstinence-only sex ed. Abstinence-only sex ed teaches students to refrain from engaging in sexual activity by highlighting the negative consequences of sex. The second type of sex ed is comprehensive sex ed. This goes beyond abstinence-only education, acknowledging abstinence, but also including education about safe sex and teaching students about contraceptive options. So let's see how these variables play out in our model. When there's more comprehensive sex ed, people will become more aware about contraceptive options and learn how to use these methods effectively when having sex. This should ultimately lead to fewer unwanted pregnancies and fewer abortions. Well, how about abstinence-only education? Supporters of this method claim that abstinence-only education leads to less sex. This in turn will similarly ultimately lead to fewer abortions. So these are both balancing feedback loops where more abortions lead to implementation of sex ed, which decreases unwanted pregnancies and decreases abortions. But is this the full picture? Some people would argue that while comprehensive sex ed leads to greater use of contraception, it may also cause people to be more likely to have sex. If this is true, then it introduces a reinforcing loop that increases abortions and mitigates the intended impact of sex ed, because even if people use contraception, sex can still lead to pregnancy. Other people would argue that abstinence-only education doesn't actually lead to a decrease in sex. On top of that, they would add that it will decrease awareness of contraception so that when people do have sex, they're more likely to get pregnant. This would also increase the number of abortions, and add another reinforcing loop. The net effect of sex ed on preventing unwanted pregnancies and abortions depends on which causal links we believe are more powerful. There isn't a broad consensus as to which form of sex ed will have the intended effect of decreasing abortions. Another common response to greater recognition of abortion as an issue is an increasing effort to criminalize abortion. Supporters of criminalization often make the argument that abortion is morally impermissible. If the argument is made successfully, this voice will lead to a decline in the view that abortion is acceptable. So we'll draw this link between criminalization and acceptability of abortion. In addition, as abortion becomes illegal, we might see a decline in the number of abortions because as clinics close and hospitals stop offering the procedures, there would be fewer available. We should also consider that as access to legal abortions declines and disappears, the demand for abortion may persist and fuel growth in a market for illegal abortion. So we can add a positive link to connect criminalization with illegal abortion. Great.
Finally, let's revisit the abortions variable. Why did people have abortions in the first place? Well, ultimately, it's because we want to eliminate the number of unwanted births. So let's draw a positive causal link between unwanted pregnancy and unwanted births. Let's assume that our society's underlying goal before abortion ever existed was to limit unwanted births. We can view abortion then as a technical policy option to help solve the problem of unwanted births. So now what if we reframe our problem and put unwanted births as our central focus? Then we would have three potential policy options. First, we can embrace and promote abortion. We can see that successful criminalization of abortion actually would lead to more unwanted births, if it works. And this is not to say that abortion is right, but perhaps that criminalization of abortion is not our best policy to mitigate unwanted births. Second, we can decrease unwanted pregnancies. And we've talked about various types of sex ed that may limit unwanted pregnancy. Also, some believe that criminalization would decrease sex through decreasing the acceptability of abortion, but this link is difficult to prove. Our final possibility is to make unwanted births less problematic. The reason we don't want unwanted births is because we care about our children, and we want all children to grow up with equal opportunities to reach their full potential and contribute to our country. Earlier we showed that the greater number of unwanted births due to low financial security, the greater number of children born to poor families. Fortunately, we can avoid this loop if we introduce the option of adoption to this model. So we'll draw the variable adoption in here. There is a positive relationship between unwanted births and number of children given up for adoption. The greater number of adoptions, the greater number of children that will be prevented from growing up in poor families. So we can also draw a negative causal link between adoption and poor children born to poor families. So we can view adoption as a type of intervention that society has created to mitigate the undesirable behavior of unwanted children being born to poor families. Adoption isn't the only policy intervention. If we continue tracing this loop, we see that children in poor families are also more likely to grow up to be poor adults. However, society has implemented a variety of social service programs as an intervention to this problem. So let's add that variable to our model here. Social service programs may include social programs where children can receive financial support growing up, or education programs such as scholarship funds that help fund college education. Continuing on with this loop, we get back to financial security, which is a cause of unwanted pregnancies. But financial security certainly isn't the only reason people don't want to be pregnant. Let's name a few others. Age, marital status, current number of children, or even competing responsibilities due to school or career. Later, you can think about how introducing these variables may affect the rest of the model, and what are some other variables that you would add to complete that relationship. We've finished adding variables to our model. Now let's think about the parties that are engaged in debates about whether abortion is right or wrong. We know that abortion is a touchy topic that is extremely ethically and emotionally charged, but there's one thing that we can probably all agree on, that we would like to see a world where all families are happy, healthy, and secure. If this is true for most of us, then let's examine the variables that are especially important. One thing that affects health is illegal abortions. The way to eliminate that is to make abortions legal so that they can be regulated, or to somehow decrease the desirability of illegal abortions. Another variable that affects health and happiness is financial security. So if we want a society where everyone enjoys a decent standard of living and where everyone can afford to pay for health services, we should focus efforts on improving financial security. When children grow up in financially disadvantaged families, they face greater barriers to success. To help these children, we can support high-quality adoption programs or other programs that help low-income children surpass barriers to poverty. So we've finished building a basic model of abortion. With our society's goals in mind, all these policies we've just talked about should not have to happen in isolation. We can find the best mix of policies to achieve our stated goals. So for example, if we do decide that we want to criminalize abortion, we should also provide more social services. If we just do one thing, we may have a worse outcome than we desire. And if we do provide greater social services that take away some responsibilities of parenthood, then we need to also promote contraception and responsible sexual behavior. Thanks for joining us today, and please share this video with others. Give us feedback and tell us what important variables we've left out and what additional policies do you think we can add to this model. Thanks for watching.